All right. So today is the Sunday after Christmas, and it's a tradition here at College Heights that on that Sunday, in that nice lull between Christmas and New Year's, that instead of a sermon and lofty theological thoughts, we read a story. Okay, so it's always about finding the story to read after Christmas. And this year, I'm reading one called The Osborne's Christmas by Lucy Maud Montgomery. Some of you here know who she is. She wrote Anne of Green Gables, right? Which we all love. Yes. This story, she had a pretty prolific writing career. This story was written in 1903, kind of in the middle of her writing time. Montgomery was Canadian, and she grew up on Prince Edward Island, which is why that's where Anne of Green Gables is set, and a lot of her stories are set. This one doesn't say where, but that would be likely. And keep that in mind when you meet some of the characters in this story, because some of them are French, right? French settled Canada. They stayed in Quebec and, sent some people down the Mississippi to Louisiana, but it would not be unusual in 1903 to meet French-speaking people on Prince Edward Island. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. So not weird at all. This morning's story is about gift giving. The tradition of gift giving at Christmas goes way back, possibly to the Roman celebration of Saturnalia, which used to happen at the winter solstice and was marked by gift exchange. And of course, then when Christianity moved in, we got Christmas instead of Saturnalia. And we continued to get this custom of gift giving, which became linked to the story about the Magi, right, who brought gifts to the Christ child, which accounts for the 3 wise men on the altar. So just so you got all the connections, we are ready with the Osborne's Christmas. Cousin Myra had come to spend Christmas at the Firs. Whenever they put a name like that in quotes, it's some grand estate, kind of a big house. All the junior Osbornes were ready to stand on their heads with delight. Darby, whose real name was Charles, didn't, because he was only 8, and at 8 you have no dignity to keep up. The others, being older, couldn't. But the fact of Christmas itself awoke no great enthusiasm in the hearts of the junior Osbornes. Frank voiced their opinion of it the day after Cousin Myra had arrived. He was sitting on the table with his hands in his pockets and a cynical sneer on his face. At least Frank flattered himself that it was cynical. He knew that Uncle Edward was said to wear a cynical sneer, and Frank admired Uncle Edward very much, imitated him in every way possible. But to you and me, it would have looked just as it did to Cousin Myra, a very discontented and unbecoming scowl. I'm awfully glad to see you, Cousin Myra, explained Frank carefully, and your being here may make some things worthwhile. But Christmas is just a bore, a regular bore. That was what Uncle Edgar called things that didn't interest him, so that Frank felt pretty sure of his word. Nevertheless, he wondered uncomfortably what made Cousin Myra smile so queerly. "Why, how dreadful," she said brightly. "I thought all boys and girls looked upon Christmas as the very best time in the year." "We don't," said Frank gloomily. "It's just the same old thing, year in and year out. We know just exactly what is going to happen. We even know pretty well what presents we are going to get. And Christmas Day itself is always the same. We'll get up in the morning and our stockings will be full of things, and half of them we don't want. Then there's dinner, and it's always so pokey. All the uncles and aunts come to dinner, just the same old crowd every year, and they say just the same things. Aunt Desda always says, 'Why, Frankie, how you have grown. She knows I hate to be called Frankie. And after dinner, they'll sit around and talk the rest of the day, and that's all. Yes, I call Christmas a nuisance. There isn't a single bit of fun in it, said Ida discontentedly. Not a bit, said the twins, both together, as they always said things. There's lots of candy, said Darby stoutly. He rather liked Christmas, although he was ashamed to say so before Frank. Cousin Myra smothered another of those queer smiles. You've had too much Christmas, you Osborns, she said seriously. It has palled on your taste, as all good things will do if you overdo them. Did you ever try giving Christmas to somebody else? The Osborns looked at Cousin Myra doubtfully. They didn't understand. We always send presents to all our cousins, said Frank hesitatingly. That's a bore, too. They've all got so many things already, it's no end of bother to think of something new. That isn't what I mean, said Cousin Myra. How much Christmas do you suppose those little Rolands down there in the hollow have? Or Sammy Abbott with his lame back? Or French Joe's family over the hill? If you have too much Christmas, why don't you give some to them? The Osborns looked at each other. This was a new idea. How could we do it? Said Ida. Whereupon they had a consultation. Cousin Myra explained her plan, and the Osborns grew enthusiastic over it. Even Frank forgot that he was supposed to be wearing a cynical sneer. I move we do it, Osborns, said he. If Father and Mother are willing, said Ida. Won't it be jolly, exclaimed the twins. Well, rather, said Darby scornfully. He did not mean to be scornful. He'd heard Frank saying the same words in the same tone and thought it signified approval. Cousin Myra had a talk with Father and Mother Osborn that night and found them heartily in sympathy with her plans. For the next week, the Osborns were agog with excitement and interest. At first, Cousin Myra made the suggestions, but their enthusiasm soon outstripped her, and they thought out things for themselves. Never did a week pass so quickly, and the Osborns had never had such fun either. Christmas morning, there was not a single present given or received at the Firs, except those which Cousin Myra and Mr. and Mrs. Osborn gave each other. The junior Osborns had asked that the money which their parents had planned to spend in presents for them be given to them the previous week, and given it was without a word. The uncles and aunts arrived in due time, but not with them was the junior Osborns concerned. They were the guests of Mr. and Mrs. Osborn. The junior Osborns were having a Christmas dinner party of their own. In the small dining room, this house has more than one dining room. In the small dining room, a table was spread and loaded with good things. Ida and the twins cooked that dinner all by themselves. To be sure, Cousin Myra had helped some. Frank and Darby had stoned all the raisins and helped pull the homemade candy, and altogether they had decorated the small dining room royally with Christmas greens. Then their guests came. First, all the little Rolands from the Hollow arrived, 7 in all, with very red, shining faces and not a word to say for themselves, so shy were they. Then came a troop from French Joe's, 4 black-eyed lads who never knew what shyness meant. Frank drove down to the village in the cutter and brought lame Sammy back with him, and soon after the last guest arrived, little Tilly Mather, who was Miss Rankin's orphan asylum girl from over the road. Everybody knew that Miss Rankin never kept Christmas. She did not believe in it, she said, but she did not prevent Tilly from going to the Osborns' dinner party. Just at first, the guests were a little stiff and unsocial, but they soon got acquainted, and so jolly was Cousin Myra, who had her dinner with the children in preference to the grown-ups. And so friendly the junior Osborns that all stiffness vanished. What a merry dinner it was. What peals of laughter went up, reaching to the big dining room across the hall where the grown-ups sat in a rather solemn state. And how those guests did eat and frankly enjoy the good things before them. How nicely they all behaved, even to the French Joes. Myra had secretly been a little dubious about those 4 mischievous-looking lads, but their manners were quite flawless. Mrs. French Joe had been drilling them for 3 days, ever since they had been invited to the Christmas dinner at the Bee house. After the merry dinner was over, the junior Osborns brought in a Christmas tree loaded with presents. They had bought them with the money that Mr. and Mrs. Osborn had meant for their own presents, and a splendid assortment they were. All the French Joe boys got a pair of skates apiece, Sammy a set of beautiful books, and Tilly was made supremely happy with a big wax doll. Every little Roland got just what his or her small heart had been longing for. Besides, there were nuts and candy galore. Then Frank hitched up his pony again, but this time into a great pung sleigh, and the junior Osborns took their guests for a sleigh drive, chaperoned by Cousin Myra. It was just dusk when they got back, having driven the Rolands and the French Joes, Sammy and Tilly, to their respective homes. This has been the jolliest Christmas I ever spent, said Frank emphatically. I thought we were just going to give the others a good time, but it was they who gave it to us, said Ida. Weren't the French Joes jolly, giggled the twins. Such cute speeches as they would make. Me and Teddy Roland are going to be chums after this, announced Darby. He's an inch taller than me, but I'm wider. That night, Frank and Ida and Cousin Myra had a little talk after the smaller Osborns had been hauled off to bed. We're not going to stop with Christmas, Cousin Myra, said Frank at the end of it. We're just going to keep on through the year. We've never had such a delightful old Christmas before. You've learned the secret of happiness, said Cousin Myra gently. The Osborns understood what she meant. Okay, talk back. I'm going to make a suggestion because we have 4 Zoomers, and the only way they can hear talk back is to use this microphone. Just for today, if you've got something to say, come on up here so that all the Zoomers can share in the talk back. And don't be shy, come on.
Obviously, a very sweet story. But the thing I think it points out to me anyway is that you got to mix it up. If you stay with the folks that you're comfortable with all the time, you can never get the Blues and the Reds together again, So what are we going to do about that? I don't know.
Very cute story, Paul. And get out of that, she says, the secret of happiness. What is the secret of happiness? Just like looking out there to that window out there, I see on that wire, a bird just sitting there, just reading, probably looking, just looking. I like what Jim said too. It's getting out of your comfort zone, where you can find happiness, just mixing it up. It's been, the bah humbug, the same bloody thing every year, and a year after year after year, nothing different. But just stepping out of your way and saying, okay, this year's going to be different. There's how you can find that place of joy, that place of happiness.
The story just reminded me of something I've observed with my mom for many years. And she actually gets offended when people, when she gives a gift to somebody, they say, oh, no, you shouldn't have. And she's, depending on how comfortable she is with the person, she will either wait until they're gone and then say it to me. I get many of these calls every year. Or she will, if she's really comfortable with them, she'll say, it's like, don't rob me of the gift that you are giving me by taking my gift. To her, that is it. The giving is the gift to her. And she gets really mad when people try and like, no, you shouldn't have. I didn't get you anything. She said, I didn't want anything. You just gave it to me by just saying thank you and enjoying it. And it really is something that I hope has passed on to me, that I get more out of. I mean, I'll tell a story on Deirdre. We just got back from New Orleans, and on Christmas Day, we went to see this light festival. And I had found out that they had it, a walking light festival, but I'd done a little research into it, and it had things in it that I didn't tell them about. So the lights were set up in the Storyland Park and the amusement park and the gardens in the city park. And when we got there, Deirdre was just so excited because it was a Storyland like the ones that used to be. There's one over in Oakland that's still there, and Gilroy Gardens has it. And she remembered them, and she was just having the grandest time as a, almost 20-year-old, acting like a 5-year-old, just playing. And I got more joy out of that than anything I could have got otherwise. And, it was just I gave that to the family by not telling them, and they had a great time, and that made me feel good. And that's what I got out of the Osborns.
Yeah, so for Christmas Eve this year, we went to my niece's house in Oakland, and my niece had twins, and a boy and a girl, and the girl decided and felt that she wasn't a girl, and changed their name, from Mila to Rory. And in the past, it's been really hard to communicate because of this change. And we're all doing her when it's supposed to be him, and things like that. And this year, he made a change, and the change was just growing taller. And the year before, the other boy grew up, a foot. And then this year, Rory grew up a foot. And she would look at you in your eyes and kind of smile. And so there was a really good feeling about that. And the only thing that was kind of, the big thing that was different this year was that somebody decided that we would have a program. And the program consisted of me doing my stupid, emoji thing. But Mary did her story of Candy Ojai, and so people really could understand, more about her. And so just throwing that in there, and then we had a gift exchange, that, white elephant thing where everybody got a goofy gift. And Mary got an outfit that she just could not wear. And that was just left. I got a little thing where I can practice my boxing skills. But it was just the discontinuity of this Christmas was really useful for everybody. And my son's wife was more welcomed than it had been, than she had been in the past. And so it was exciting in that sense, just in the change up of the way things were done.
So thank you for the story, Polly. That was actually very lovely. Every time someone tells a story, the little girl inside of me I was ready to sit there and listen like you would in kindergarten. To build on what Kevin said, I didn't grow up with gift giving being part of Christmas. One, my parents didn't have much when we were in Pakistan, and it wasn't about gifts. You got twice a year, at least that's what I remember growing up, and my brother does, was at Christmas and on our birthdays, we got a new pair of shoes and a new outfit. So I guess that was the gift, but that was the time to get, new clothes. But the rest, that was the 2 times. But coming here to the US and then watching Kevin's family and learning. And he taught me that the joy of giving a gift is so much more than receiving one. And so it has grown for me through the years. This year was kind of crazy because I ended up baking 235 scones. But I remember my friend saying to me, who came to help, Sharon, you guys met her. She was like, how many bags are you making? I said, I have about 50. She was like, you have that many friends? And I said, I have that many people that make a difference for me in my life, that hold me up. At church, at school, my neighbors. That's my village. And I don't have money to buy gifts for everyone, but the scones are a really lovely recipe. Everybody enjoys them. This is my way of saying, thank you for being in my life. I appreciate you so much. So I understand the joy that those kids got in the story, because that's the joy I get from making scones for people. So.
I waited for Pepe to go first because she's a woman and they don't have so many men in a row. I know all about gifts because I was married to Karen Conklin for 32 years, and typically George and Karen and I would have so many presents under the tree just for the 3 of us that it would take hours. Now it took us 45 minutes just to do our stockings. By the way, if any women here or that you know or here wear 8.5 size shoes, I have 20 boxes of unused shoes to give away. Hola Reina, George, Astrid, Jane. Oye, mi mamá, la mamá de mi mamá, mi abuela materna, se llamaba Reyes porque nació el 6 de enero. Y se casó, Reyes del León se llama, y se casó con Juan Reyes. Entonces era Reyes de León de Reyes. Y mi papá, al llegar a la casa de mi papá en Oregon, siempre decía, porque trajimos tantos regalos, Karen y yo, decía, ay, cómo me aflige. Los demás estaban bien a gusto, porque Karen y yo éramos Santa Claus en Navidad. I was saying how my grandmother her name was Kings, Reyes, because she was born on the Epiphany, and then she married Juan Reyes. I wanted to say something about when Pepe read the thing about the 3 kings going the other way to avoid danger. Well, sometimes we go the other way, not just to avoid danger, but because we see a path. We see the light that's really behind it all, you see? And to give is so eternal. What else can we do but to give, right? That's how we know what we have, because we're able to give, right? That's the subterfuge of everything to me, especially at this time. Thank you, love you all. Happy New Year too. Goodbye.
We don't always get the last word, don't we?
I had a really interesting experience when I first came to California. I came as an artist, and I had this friend that was a copywriter, and we worked in Oakland, and she lived in San Francisco. And she had this very interesting Christmas. She just loved Christmas, and she collected things from all over the world. She was a little bit older than me, and it would be like something from India and something from South America, there'd be something from Peru, and she had all these little areas that she had things, and she would have 2 Christmas trees. She collected ornaments, and then she had everybody that didn't have a place to go for Christmas to come to her house. Now you gotta remember, I was only in my 20s, so I didn't know anybody, and I never met anybody in San Francisco that actually was born in San Francisco. Everybody that I knew, until I came to the peninsula, there was nobody that came from California. So we would go there, and it was just so delightful, because it was like I was the orphan. And I came from a family, and I had family, but I didn't go back home. I was here in California. So, and then what they would do is they'd have these white elephants, presents. So you wrap your presents, and we were all in the newspaper business, so most of the times they'd be wrapped in newspapers and comic strips and all this kind of stuff. But then afterwards, you could put all the presents out, and you could exchange. So you would exchange the white elephant with another white elephant, and you sometimes get something you really liked. But I always think of her, and she's deceased now, and she's probably watching everybody, and it was sort of given to me to continue, and right now, it's different, because everybody that lives on the peninsula has friends, but anybody that ever doesn't have any place to go for Christmas can come to our house, because it's a tradition, and we usually have a couple people that don't have a place to go. But anyways, very interesting story. Her name was Carolyn.
I have something that's not. May I?
Okay.
Not to that. So this is kind of a very personal. Christmas Eve, we were here the day before Christmas, Monday, we helped Polly decorate. Janice and myself put the altar there. The whole bit, it was quite an experience. Christmas Eve, there weren't a plethora of us here. There were just a very few of us, and I felt kind of deflated, yeah? Oh, what happened? Where is everybody? And I even talked to Adelaide, and Adelaide said, maybe we should go out and get people, drag people to come to the service. After the service was all done, I was in this place of, not so joyous. And I said to Janice, I said, should we take a ride? Want to go for a ride? It was cold. She said, yeah. And we went to Eucalyptus Avenue in St. Carlos. Oh, it was amazing. And then I asked her, it gets better. So I said, it's cold. Should we just drive around? We've done this every year, lots of time. She said, no, let's get out and walk. Okay, we get out and walk. It was cold, and people coming all in front of us, people all over. And it was so amazing. So how I felt when I left from here, and I was over there watching all these lights, and the gaiety, the joyousness, and the bewilderment of people looking at all the lights. It was a joy that I had to explain it, share it. here. So not a lot of people showing up for our Christmas Eve celebration here. We saw a lot of joyousness in the streets in Eucalyptus Avenue. Thank you.
Katie's story kind of reminded me of something that I had when I was in college this past couple weeks. I really wanted to go look at Christmas lights, but I didn't know where they would be, and I know the Monterey area, but I didn't drive yet, and I finally got a car, so yay. Over Thanksgiving break. But I was with my boyfriend, and we wanted to do Christmas lights at Christmas. So I looked up a place, I put it into Google Maps, and then it took us a 17-mile drive, and we didn't really want to pay to go on a 17-mile drive, because we were like, we're just trying to get out and look at a neighborhood, we don't want to pay. So we said, okay, we'll just drive around Monterey and, you know, put an address for a random neighborhood, and we'll just go see if they have lights. And as we were driving to this random neighborhood, we saw lights off to the side, and I was like, Alex, turn around, we have to go, there's so many lights there. And I had done research before we went to go see this, and I was looking for this place called Candy Cane Lane, Morse Drive, that's what it was called. And we get out and we're walking around, and we're like, wow, this is so cool. And in that little description when I was researching, I heard about a park that was all decked out. And we turned a corner and there was a park. And then I looked at the street sign and it said Morse Drive. And I looked at the little sign at the front of the park and it said Candy Cane Lane. And I went, Alex, we found it. We didn't need to go on a 17-mile drive. We found it, and it was completely a surprise, and I kind of did what I did with Christmas Day. I became a little kid because they had Harry Potter stuff, and they had this Ferris wheel that was going around. I highly recommend it, by the way. It's it's called Morse Drive, Candy Cane Lane. And then I, in turn, took my roommate to go see it because she and I both didn't have a car for the longest time. We couldn't explore Monterey, and I was like, you know what? I have a car now. I want to be able to do what Alex did for me and bring me to the Candy Cane Lane, and I want to do that for her. And so it was kind of a full circle moment that I don't know. I thought it was really fun.
Oh, well, I had just a couple comments listening to your responses. You know the song that we often sing at the end of our service about "Come, come, whoever you are," and we have our own version, right? It's not the Rumi version. The last line in the Rumi version is "Come yet again, come." But the way we do it, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Ours is another way home. And it's with reference to this story. And it's being Christian in another way than the traditional stuff that we all were at one point, but we aren't anymore. Ours is another way home. I love that line. But the other comment I had listening to yours is that it's a tremendous discovery in your life when you figure out that it makes you happy to make someone else happy. And if your focus is on the other person instead of inside your own head, I mean, it's a big moment. It's a spiritual discovery, actually. The Buddhists have a name for this. They call it mudita, and it means taking joy in the joy of others. It's very interesting. I get a lot of comments about what I've set up down in Pacific Grove and how willingly I share it with people. The guest books, I think we're now on the end of the fourth guest book. Hundreds of people have been down there in the 20 years that we've had that property. And they all comment on like this unusual generosity, which, yeah, it is. But it was only the Buddhist nun. There's this little Buddhist nun from San Francisco who goes down to the cottage for a week every year for a silent meditation. And when she does a silent meditation, it's serious. She sent me her daily program, and it's like, you know, get up and meditate, eat, meditate, walk, meditate. I mean, hey, that's why the cottage has such lovely energy, is because she just infuses it all the time. But the first time that she was there, I remember she wrote in the guest book, what joy you must receive in the giving. And I went, ooh, she got it. She got it. And that's exactly right. The ability to share and complete that cycle of making somebody else happy, just like Annie, it's tremendously satisfying for me. So I don't know. Anyway, I love that the kids in the story discovered the secret of happiness. Serve them well in their lives. Okay, we're going to sing our responsive hymn, which is Give Good Gifts. This is an old Shaker hymn, and it's not very long, but it has repeats. So you sing the first two lines, and then you sing the first two lines again. And then you sing the second half, and then you sing the second half again. That's it. Okay? So.